Hi, good morning. My name is Liz Cooper and I'm the Science Live Office Coordinator here at DRI. And I'm going to be giving you a quick paint demo just on how to use the paint sets that you've received to paint for your derby cars. I just have a scrap piece of wood so that I don't ruin one of the nice derby cars. So ideally you've worked on a design with your group and figured out a plan for executing that design. If you've already drawn your design on your wood, that's great. If not, you can always paint a background color and then draw your design on top. So things to have at the beginning before you get started: a cup of water. I'm working on just a rag, but you know, some type of something to cover up your desk, paper towel, brushes, and then you should have a paint palette, and I poured a little bit of water in my palette too, just for mixing. So first thing, you have a number of colors. Use caution when opening these because, like, look, this purple one like globbed out everywhere. So be aware that it might be a little bit messy, and you know, make sure that you cover your clothing, or maybe choose some appropriate clothing for the painting day that you're okay maybe getting a little bit messy. So I'm going to talk about mixing colors. So you do have a variety of colors, but if you wanted to mix a new color, for example, if you wanted to make like a purple, you could start with some red. And again, since you are sharing your paints with your group, you don't want to take your paintbrush that has red paint on it and then stick it in another color. So this would be a good time to rinse your brush. So just kind of rinse it in your water, dry it off on your towel, paper towel, something like that. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of blue, just a teensy bit, to make a purple. Oh, my water is just spinning all over. Okay. We'll just pour that water out. So you can kind of see this is making more of a darker color, even though I only use the teensiest bit of blue. The blue is a lot darker, so it really takes on that color. So I just poured that out. Okay. And then let's say I wanted to make maybe a bit of a lighter purple. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that. So I rinsed my paintbrush, dried it off, grab a little bit of white, and then I'm going to add the white into the second piece and then just add some purple to that white. Because if I took my white and added it to the purple, I would have to be adding a lot of white in order for it to make any kind of an impact. But now I have kind of two different shades of that purple. So I have darker purple and then this lighter one, which is going to be great for my painting. So let's say, for example, you wanted to paint a background color. So let's say one section of my derby car, I want it to be this darker purple. I'm going to kind of paint that on. So this is acrylic paint, but it is water-based. So you'll notice that since I had a bunch of water on my palette, it is a little bit watery and not as opaque, which means like you can't see through it. So you can see it's a little bit watery. And painting on wood too is different than painting on paper. The wood grain really absorbs the paint in a different way. Versus, okay, so notice I rinse my brush, dry it off, versus I'm going to grab some purple just straight from from my table because I spilt it. Okay, and you can kind of see the difference here with that color that's straight out of the container. It's going to be a lot darker. So the good news with painting on wood is that it dries pretty quickly, and ideally you have also sanded this piece down. Like, this is just some scrap wood I grabbed from the workshop. But if you sand your piece down, you're not going to be fighting with the wood grains and stuff like that. So one kind of fun thing that you can do, so these two colors are pretty similar, is you can kind of try to blend the colors together by going in the same direction, kind of create like an ombre effect. I'm going to rinse, grab some of that darker color, and this can be a fun way to kind of transition. This can be a really cool effect for cars, right? Like darker to lighter. And I'm just kind of overlapping the two colors. Okay, now I'm going to introduce that lighter purple that I made, and I'm going to draw it right onto that, the stock purple, as we'll call it, and then kind of blend it out. kind of go back in. And it is pretty watery. Just again, I had too much water on my palette, so that's my bad. Yeah, and you can kind of get this cool ombre effect by blending those three. Some other paint techniques. So we've kind of gone over mixing. So let's say, again, you wanted to do a color on top. So to get a good contrast from this, what I'm not going to want to do is do a color that's darker. I'm going to do white because that's going to give a nice big pop. I'm going to use my other brush, which is a little bit smaller, and kind of show you what that looks like. So since this is so saturated, I'm able to get some really good contrast there between the dark and the light. Ideally, you would wait for the background to dry, but since I'm demoing for you. But since this is straight out of the container, even on the lighter piece, it shows up really well. So that's kind of a dark background with a lighter color. Since this is acrylic paint, that will work for you, whereas normally you couldn't cover something dark with something light. Okay, so, and then let's say that you had some sort of a design, I'm just gonna do like a flower that you had drawn on. So one thing you could do is draw it on the wood and then paint it, or you could paint the background, and then once it's dry, again, mine isn't, so do as I say, not as I do. So once it's dry, you can sketch onto the wood, and then you can kind of follow along. So let's do another color just for fun. Again, some of these colors too could use with a bit of mixing. So you can use just the tail end of your paintbrush and just kind of give it a little bit mix. If it looks kind of like, again, they are water-based, so it just might be a little watery depending on how long they've been sitting in your green box. Okay, so grab a little of this really fun, it's kind of like an aqua, and kind of show you. So then you can just kind of follow along with the lines on your pencil. So when you think about how you're going to kind of divide up the painting for your derby car, think about, okay, maybe somebody, and there's, you know, 4 sides to it. So maybe one person paints the background on one side, and then you go so on and so forth. So everyone gets to paint the background. Maybe you each get a section, or maybe, you know, some person is more comfortable with drawing, so you let them kind of sketch everything on there with pencil, kind of lean into each other's strengths and interests and kind of see how that goes. So again, that's kind of a nice fun. So I would recommend doing it this way versus this way because, okay, so let's say I painted my my flower just right onto I drew it onto the wood, and then I painted it on, but I want a background. Now I'm gonna have to go in, I'm just gonna pick another color just for fun, pink, okay? And I'm gonna have to like really carefully paint in between the petals. And it's just going to be more time consuming and more annoying than if I just painted over it. And again, these paints layer really well. So I would recommend do your background, let it dry, then sketch on top of it. A good goal for painting would be to not have any negative space. So you don't want to see any of the wood grain remaining. You have a lot of paint, you should have an ample amount of time. So kind of use that. Okay, so cleanup wise, you want to make sure that you clean off your paint palette. So just rinse this in the sink. Rinse your brushes. You don't want to leave brushes with any paint in them. So rinse them off in your water bowl just before, dry them. And then you can also rinse these under the sink and kind of just like push the paint out with your fingers, dry them, and then make sure to just close up these paints really well. They are like pretty annoying to use. And then leave your piece somewhere to dry where no one's going to bump into it. This is really important because you don't want someone to like drag their sweater into your paint and mess up all of your creations. So that was a real quick demo on some painting techniques, and I hope you have a great time painting your derby cars. Thank you.